congratulations on Being BeBe.
Thank you.
Playing here at Outfest. And I just wondered when you first encountered Marshall, aka BeBe Zahara Benet, and whether you instantly thought, well, this is a person who would make a very interesting film subject.
Yeah, so I first met BeBe through my little sister, who was dancing backup for BeBe in a Minneapolis drag pageant. And I was living in New York at the time, and my sister told me about BeBe on the phone. You know, my sister found the audition on like a ballet school bulletin board, and yeah, I went to this audition and told me about it, that there was this drag performer from Cameroon, and she was dancing backup, and I was like, I think I need to come out there. I don't know, I just need to see what this is about. So I had an inkling as soon as my sister told me about BeBe. But then when I saw BeBe perform, I was like, oh yes, this is definitely a short film, a really great short film about a drag pageant. Because BeBe was like this promising amateur in the Minneapolis scene, going to her first national pageant in Dallas. And I was like, that would be really a great short film. So I gathered a couple friends, borrowed a camera, and yeah, thought that was going to be it. And when I got to know BeBe more, I was like, no, there's so much more there with this person. The pageant was great, but like, there was just a lot more there that I wanted to explore. And I never thought it would take 15 years to explore it all, but you know, I think it was worth waiting for.
And when you did approach BeBe about the idea of doing a film, how open was she to the idea of the film? Yeah, and really how open was she as a documentary subject as you went along, if whether that was something that evolved?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think BeBe didn't totally know what documentary was when I started. I think she kind of thought maybe I was like a volunteer videographer, you know? And so it took a while to sort of figure out that relationship together and like explain what I wanted and was going for, and you know, but eventually we got onto the same page. I wouldn't say she was like the most enthusiastic documentary subject. I think if you watch the film, you get the sense of what a private person BeBe ultimately is. And, you know, we really had to build trust, and she really had to wrap her head around why I was doing this, like what it was going to be, why I was doing it, and I think ultimately she agreed that her story was important and that it needed to be told, and so that was where we got on the same page with it, I think.
And you mentioned that it was a 15-year journey, which I think is one of the things that makes the film really interesting, because it's such a, you know, a big portion of anybody's life anyway, but particularly with what BeBe has been through. How did you, why did it take so long, but how did you benefit from that too?
Yeah, well, again, I never set out for it to be 15 years at all. Like, I remember, you know, when BeBe won Drag Race, I was like, oh, this is great, I've been filming for 3 years, like, this is our ending, this is gonna be great. But I started cutting it together at that point, like 2009, 2010, right after BeBe had won the show, and it just, like, it wasn't rich enough yet. Like, it just wasn't, I knew BeBe's story was deeper than that. So I was honestly, like, kind of, you know, depressed for a while. I was like, I don't even know what this is gonna be yet, but I know it's more than this. So I kind of went back to the drawing board. We continued to film a little bit here and there. BeBe moved to New York, which is where I lived, so we were able to film together, you know, more often off and on, and she'd tell me when she was going through things. But for me, like, the heart of the film, the most interesting part of the film, the part where I was like, ah, yes, this is a feature-length movie, is in 2014, BeBe called me up and was like, look, New York is okay, but if something doesn't change soon, I'm leaving. So I was like, okay, this is interesting. So I feel like the heart of the film is really that one summer where BeBe's given it one last shot, putting on one last show, and trying to do something new with it, something more raw, something more vulnerable, and seeing if it sticks, and going through like different explorations to do that, like this acting class that's kind of like out there, and you know, just trying to sort of crack that shell, get a little bit deeper, go behind the facade a little bit, and you know, coming up against why those self-protective things are there, I think is really interesting, and tells a little bit more about who BeBe is. And also, we see it play out in scenes, which is so satisfying. So, yeah.
And why did you want to take us to Cameroon in the film and to really explore what LGBTQ plus life is like for folks living there?
Yeah. So again, that wasn't necessarily part of the plan, and the film does kind of, the way the film unfolds, you get a window into why it unfolded in that way. But it just, Cameroon is an inseparable part of who BeBe is. Like, it's more than a catchphrase. It is her heart, you know? and I hadn't been there, so we had to film in Cameroon. It was just a question of what that was going to be, and the way it unfolded, I think, was pretty magical in the end. And I'm so grateful for everybody who opened up to me there.
So you mentioned Drag Race, the first season of Drag Race that, of course, BeBe won. But while you were, in the process of this, 15 years of gathering material to make the film, All Stars happened as well. How did that shape the film? The fact that BeBe was going to have an international spotlight on her, and also because Drag Race is a different thing now to what it was, in the first season when, as you show in the film, it's like, well, what is this thing?
Yeah, what is this going to be? Like, are they going to make fun of us? Like, what's it going to be? Yeah, it's such a different beast, and the fact that so much time elapsed, from 2009 to 2018 when she was invited to All Stars, it was major. Honestly, it was a huge, hopeful thing for me for the film because, it's just wonderful to see people have another uptick and another opportunity for people to get to know who they are, because this was a whole new generation of viewers who were watching Drag Race now, who had maybe not seen season 1, because it was really hard to watch for a while. Like, it wasn't as easy to get as the other seasons for a bunch of reasons, but now it's more available. But yeah, so it was huge. It was huge, and it made me feel more hopeful about the film as well. And because I don't know, everybody has ups and downs in their career, and BeBe's not a person who's like a person who gives up, or a person who I felt like was a failure. But before the All Stars boost, there was sort of like a less successful period, which we all have in our lives. So I just knew it would be so much more satisfying for audiences to see somebody bounce back. And really, All Stars was not another peak. It was like another platform to keep building up from again for BeBe. And I was just really excited to see that play out in real time.
And how did the pandemic affect, well, BeBe, of course, but then, and also yourself while you were making the film? Because we see you on Zoom, but then there's a camera, not a computer camera on BeBe, so it forced you to be quite innovative, it seems, from watching the film.
Yeah. Well, again, there were multiple big pushes that we made to finish the film, right? There was a big push in 2009. There was a big push in, I guess I would say, 2015. But the biggest push, I think, was right before we finished, like maybe a year ago. We were hoping to premiere in 2020. And the version of the film that existed, that we were submitting to festivals in early 2020, it was good, but like our feedback screenings were like, and so we were just like, how could this be better? And so the pandemic was such an opportunity in a weird way to like step back and be like, what is missing? What could be that sort of like magic special something that could pull everything together more elegantly? And so we came up with this idea of doing a new interview in 2020 from the standstill of COVID in Minneapolis, where BeBe and I are from, where BeBe was living, where the George Floyd tragedy was affecting all of us in the country, and just like use that as an opportunity to reflect on the past 15 years that we filmed together. And I don't know, I'm just so grateful that we did have that extra year, honestly, because it's a stronger film because of it. And yeah.
And what does it mean for you to have the film play here at Outfest, and BeBe's going to be performing as part of the in-person screening as well?
Yeah, we're so excited. It's our second in-person festival screening, and our first ones at Provincetown were wonderful, but much more intimate. They were probably 50-person theaters, and this is just a much larger venue. The fact that BeBe's going to perform live is really exciting. BeBe's music is such a big part of who she is and where she wants to go next. And so, yeah, I'm just so excited that audiences are going to not only get to see the film, but get to see BeBe up close and personal. It's just a treat for our team to get together in person after such a hard pandemic year of like putting this thing together all remotely, through blood, sweat, and tears and Zoom. And yeah, we're just so excited. And Outfest is such a great festival for particularly our audience. So yeah, couldn't be more thrilled.
And as a filmmaker, is there a particular documentary or another filmmaker who you've been inspired by or influenced by?
So many. I guess I love the documentary filmmakers who, look, documentary does a lot of good in the world, like social issue films, wonderful. But I love films that are character driven, that are funny, that are heartwarming. I don't know, I think some of the early inspirations for this movie were like American Movie which is, you know, also about creative people trying to make their way in a creative field. What else do I love? In the past year, well, okay, the film's almost done in the past year, but like I love a film like The Mole Agent, where it's just like heartwarming, connecting to people, windows into real life and endearing connection, relationships. I don't know, but I guess I like the documentaries that are not always so heavy all the time. Agnes Varda, huge inspiration. Proves that documentaries can be anything, which gives a lot of freedom in the edit room. Yeah, there's so many.
Well, Emily, thanks very much, and congratulations again on Being BeBe playing here at Outfest.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to talk with you.
Thank you.